Hey everyone, this is Dana, also known as a Red Hat on Tumblr, and I'm going to give you a pretty straightforward look at the Common Core standards. I'm going to talk about what standards are, how we got them, and what they're made up of. Alright, so a standard is a level of quality and is used to gauge learning by setting a bar that is the expected level a student should reach by the end of a school year. And that's really important because you're not teaching lessons to have the students master a standard in one sitting. This is something that you're practicing throughout the school year, and it's really your end of the year goal. So let's talk history. The Elementary and Secondary Act of 1965 came from President Lyndon Johnson's War on Poverty. Its purpose was to fund elementary and secondary education. It's been reauthorized every 5 years since then. It was also known as the Improving America Schools Act of 1994. Then came the publication of A Nation at Risk. Secretary of Education T.H. Bell created the National Commission on Excellence in Education. He directed it to examine the quality of education in the United States. This kicked off the standard-based education reform. Then, the Elementary and Secondary Act was reauthorized under the No Child Left Behind Act. The NCLB led to higher standards for all children, ensuring access to challenging academic content and improving accountability, and much more. Finally, the National Governors Association sponsored the Common Core State Standard Initiative. Alright, so we're going to jump right into the math standards. And the math standards are specific content-based standards, which means they tell you what to teach and at what grade level. If you want to know more about how these math standards have changed from previous standards, you can check out my presentation on the key shifts in the EduPD Google Drive. So the math standards have something called the mathematical practices. These are areas of expertise that should be practiced at all levels. So whatever your grade level, if you go to your section of the standards, all 8 of these will appear. These are not standards in and of themselves, but characteristics that we want students to show while engaging with the material. So whether you're practicing multiplication facts or learning two-digit addition, you want to encourage your students to persevere in solving problems, construct viable arguments, or use appropriate tools. The mathematical practices are really a way to help your students develop a mathematical way of thinking. Alright, so I'm not going to go into specifics with the standards. If you want to read them, head over to corestandards.org. You can't click on that link in the video, but this presentation is available in the Google Drive. Anyway, I'd like to take a look at the domains. Domains are larger groups of similar standards. One of the key shifts in the math standards was fewer topics and deeper understanding. Looking at the domains, it's a little hard to see this. Kindergarten has 5 domains, but that doesn't really show the actual content they're learning. A domain can have several standards under it depending on the grade level. Here are 2 domains at the kindergarten level. These domains are also used up to 5th grade, but the standards beneath them are different. Numbers and operations in base 10 has only one standard. Work with numbers 11 through 19 to gain foundations for place value. Measurement and data has 2 standards. So you can see that although there may be several domains, this doesn't reflect the amount of content that's being learned. Here's a look at how the standards are structured in the document itself. You have the domain with the cluster of standards underneath it. On the right side of the domain, there is a 3-point NDT. This stands for Grade 3 Numbers and Operations in Base 10. If you added a 0.2 after it, that would specify the standard within that domain. Alright, halfway there. The ELA standards are structured similarly, but as math has domains, ELA has strands. K through 5 has 4 main strands: reading, writing, speaking and listening, and language. 6 through 8 adds on literacy for other subject areas like science and history. Although I don't see why these aren't the elementary level too. So each strand has its own anchor standards, which are the same for every grade level. These are kind of like domains, but there's more to them. And unlike the math standards, which divide grade levels into whole sections, the ELA standards have 3 grades per page. This structure allows us to easily see the standards across grade levels. Okay, a quick overview of the standards. I really like the layout for these standards because you can easily see the standards for the grade before and the grade after your own. And this allows you to see a progression of skills from dependent to independent and from lower level thinking to higher level thinking. While reading the standards, keep an eye out for the verb changes. You'll see changes from ask to identify to describe, and from use to interpret to draw on information. It's really important to see where your students should be starting and where they're going. I say should because we all know we will have students who are higher or lower than the grade level standard, and we can't simply jump the lower level students up to grade level, but we need to help them work their way through the steps. The reading standards are different from the other ELA standards. The reading standards have 3 subcategories: reading literature, reading informational text, and reading foundational skills. Reading literature and informational text have the same anchor standards. The first is key ideas and details. This anchor covers ideas like close reading, what the text says explicitly versus logical inferences. It has students determining central ideas and analyzing the why and how. Craft and structure focuses on analyzing how words are used to convey meaning, how parts of a text relate to other parts, and looking at point of view and style. Integration of knowledge and ideas focuses on synthesis of ideas and analysis of information. Range of reading and level of text complexity is exactly what it says it is. These anchor standards apply to K through 12 across all subject areas. Still under the reading standards is a subcategory for reading foundational skills, and it has its own anchor standards. Print concepts cover reading from left to right, spaces between words, which I know a few 4th graders who drove me nuts with this, and being able to recognize and name capital and lowercase letters. Phonological awareness is a knowledge of syllables and sounds. The phonics anchor standard focuses on decoding words. And finally, fluency focuses on accuracy and fluency in reading to support comprehension. Okay, on to the writing standards. This is the second strand of the ELA standards. There are no subcategories, just the anchor standards. Text type and purposes are the genre of writing that students are engaging in, for example, narrative or informational. Production and distribution covers the writing process and how students publish their writing. This anchor standard actually specifically includes the use of technology to publish and collaborate. The last 2 anchor standards are pretty self-explanatory. Research focuses on research skills and presentation, and range of writing is how long students are writing for. It calls for short daily writing to long stretches of writing in one sitting. This anchor standard doesn't apply until 3rd grade, though. The speaking and listening strand has only 2 anchor standards. Comprehension and collaboration is pretty straightforward. Students should participate in a range of conversations and collaborations and be able to evaluate information being presented by a speaker. Presentation of knowledge and ideas wants to ensure students organize information in a clear and easy to follow way. It also states that students should make a strategic use of digital media while presenting information. And finally, the language strand. This strand has 3 anchor standards. Conventions of Standard English require students to use correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. Knowledge of language focuses on understanding language in different contexts. Vocabulary acquisition and use focuses on learning academic language and being able to determine the meaning of words or figurative language. Alright, so I just talked about all of these anchor standards. The full title of these anchor standards are the College and Career Readiness Anchor Standards. But these are not the actual standards. The anchor standards apply to all grade levels, while the actual standards are grade specific. According to the Common Core State Standards, the anchor standards and the grade specific standards are necessary complements that together define the skills and understanding that all students must demonstrate. So here's a look at how the anchor standards and the standards relate in the actual document. This picture shows a writing standard for grade 3. This is under the anchor standard for text types and purposes, which I told you focuses on the genre of writing a student is engaging in. The grade-specific standard is write opinion pieces on topics or texts supporting a point of view with reasons. And that's it for my overview of the Common Core Standards. I hope it was helpful for you. If you want to read the standards, head over to corestandards.org or visit your state education website to see any additions to the standards that your state might have added. I know in New York the standards are structured a lot differently, and some technology standards were added. If you have any questions or want to get in contact with me, head over to aredhat.tumblr.com and send me a message. Thanks!